Thank you again for joining us for Social Venture Partners series on Meet the Fellows. This is a series that we will feature some of the fellows from the 2019 to 20 fellowship class. First person I want to introduce you to is Valerie Finley. Valerie began her journey of caring for those in need in 1978 when she was introduced to the Hunger Project as a volunteer. She just couldn't believe that children and seniors were going to bed hungry. This began a lifetime of caring for those who are less fortunate. Valerie's work is guided by her Christian faith. The gospel has led Valerie to her strong conviction that no one should be hungry regardless of the choices they've made in life. So over the past 41 years, she has had the privilege to work hands-on with helping others. She started in nonprofit work as an associate and advocate for the homeless in Irvine, California. She also led a homeless initiative in Las Vegas. In 2000, Valerie moved to Texas, where she served at Bokenkamp Children's Center for abused and neglected children. In 2004, she went to Oklahoma to lead the Christmas Connection. It's a seasonal program for low-income families where she grew it into an entire network of agencies serving those in need. And then in 2015, she came to San Antonio with her family to lead the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. Here she's able to take her faith, put it to work, and help low-income families across Bexar County. Everybody welcome Valerie Finley.
Okay, you can go ahead and pull it up. So thank you, everybody. I'm very excited to be here and to share about this amazing organization that I'm with. I just really, I think if you, yeah, perfect, thank you. So the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, Southwest Texas is a part of a global organization that was actually founded by Frederick Ozanam. Could you go to the next slide, please? So Frederick is totally amazing. He began by responding to the inequity and the injustice that they saw in the community at that time. And they were actually college students who gathered together in the 1800s in Paris. And they pooled their funds. They began providing resources for the families in that area. And they chose the 17th century Apostle St. Vincent de Paul because they really saw that his charity and his lifting of the whole figurehead for their cause, because he really just strongly believed in caring for others. And I love the quote from St. Vincent: "You will go and visit the poor 10 times a day, and 10 times a day you will find God there." I'm very blessed to get to work with a Catholic organization. It's strong to my faith and my beliefs, and so it's wonderful that every day I get to work in that environment. Next slide, please. So coming up on 150 years, we continue our mission here in San Antonio. And we're providing direct assistance to those who meet all of the critical needs. So we're really, our service area is 58 conferences, think of them as distribution sites in 10 counties. So we have a pretty good coverage of the Southwest Texas area. And it spans almost 1,400 miles. So it's good. We are allowed to reach out to people who are hurting and people who are just, so many times they just need somebody to visit with. They just need somebody to care. Somebody who's going to sit there and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm here for you." But what's great is all of our sites are operated by volunteers, and when they come in, they can receive a variety of services. There's food, clothing, and a lot with rent and housing assistance. We want to make sure that people are staying in their homes and that families are kept together. That's been such a core belief for so long, is, you know, just really going and visiting families where they're at. We also have one of our other programs we're most known for is St. Vinny's Bistro. St. Vinny's Bistro provides over 1,100 meals to the people who are at the courtyard at Haven for Hope. So we're doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and sack lunches and med sacks. You know how you need to take medicine when you're, you can take food with your medicine. And then also the other part with this pandemic is Haven's had a hotel that they've been operating for the past several months since the beginning of April, mid-April. And that it really has acted as a quarantine before people go on campus. For a while, it was just another location so that people had a place to go. And so we're providing the dinners there. So that's provided us lots of fun logistics to sit there and say, okay, how do we operate, you know, the serving at the two locations? But we have an amazing team and they've been able to do it. The other thing that was interesting about the bistro is because of the pandemic, we were not able to have our outside volunteers come in. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the shift work program that the nation had. So here in San Antonio, people who were in the food industry who were laid off from their jobs for some reason due to the pandemic, they were able to volunteer at a local location. So the food bank had some, we had some, I know lots of different nonprofits did, and they would get paid. So it was a win-win. We had people who could come in and volunteer with us, and then they could also keep on having some income coming into their home. So that was very nice for them. Next slide. So right now I've been really, so Mr. Ramos, I need to share about Mr. Ramos because he was just absolutely amazing. So he had been working for the same company here in San Antonio for over 20 years. And then he was diagnosed with cancer and the treatment that came with all of that. You know, it's always so hard for families, even families that have strong everything. So Mr. Ramos struggled to keep his work level up, to be able to do everything he was supposed to do. And his employer was very accommodating for a while, but eventually they couldn't meet all of his needs and they needed to let him go. Well, Mr. Ramos has always been the sole provider for his family. His wife has always, her job was to stay at home and take care of him and the kids and the grandkids. And so she didn't have any of that work experience. And, you know, he said that I didn't ask for this situation. I've always been a hardworking man. I never asked to be here. You know, it's just so many different circumstances that fell upon him. He was referred to us by the city of San Antonio because he had been evicted from his home and Social Security would not cover all of his living expenses. And even though he was working every day of his life, you know, they still found themselves homeless. We were able to help him and his wife stay in a hotel temporarily, so we were able to pay for the hotel. And then with other community partners, we've been able to sit there and have Mr. and Mrs. Ramos move into their home, and you see them at their front door. And it was a difficult and lengthy process, and there's always lots of steps to it. One of the things that we really take pride in is that it's more than writing a check. We want to ensure that when we either put somebody into their home or have them help them stay in their home, that they're able to sustain it. Because it's very nice to be able to do the Band-Aid and we paid your rent for the month or we paid your utilities for the month. But we want to have that deeper conversation and say, okay, so what's the plan going forward? How are we going to ensure that in 2 months you're not coming back to us or somebody else? So we really were able to work with him a lot, and the biggest thing is he longs to see his kids and his grandkids, and he hopes after the pandemic that soon this will happen. Mr. Ramos and his wife are one of many, many families that have come to our doors. And probably one of the biggest things we've seen with the whole pandemic is that there's people who never thought that they would be here. You know, they've lost their jobs, their circumstances have changed. And so it's a new population, you know, that's coming forth, and it's been very difficult for people. And then we've had a lot of people who are on very fixed incomes. And again, that goes back to wanting to ensure that you can sustain where you're going to live. And so it's hard because San Antonio does not have a lot of affordable housing. And so it makes it difficult for people to be able to find that forever, you know, that home where they can be. And sometimes we've also seen that people are having to live in a different environment than what they're used to. You know, it's not the same neighborhood that they were in. It's not the same school district. It's not the same everything. And that's been challenging. We have a young lady right now who's going to have to leave her school in Kerrville to come down to San Antonio because it's just the way circumstances are going, and we can get our housing down here. So, you know, we have amazing staff that do an incredible job on ensuring that people have what they need. If you go to the next slide. So we do operate with a small staff. We have 10 people, and then we have 11 people that operate the bistro, because we need to make sure that we have some professionals to cook all of that. And then our funding is, we always get asked, so we're not part of the Catholic Church, so we don't get funding from the church. So it really comes from a variety of sources. You know, it's coming from private donations, foundations. Right now, we have a lot more government grants because of the CARES money. Regardless of political, all of that, there has been a lot of money brought into the city to sit there and help with rent and utilities. They've done an amazing job, but also with that money comes strings. There's also all kinds of sometimes limitations. So that's why our private dollars are always so important, because we'll find that somebody comes to us and they don't meet the criteria. So it's been good to have some private dollars to help with that. As I mentioned earlier, we're coming up on our 150th anniversary, and we really are celebrating a legacy of faith. You know, it's where we've been, it's our history. We've been around for a long time. I love that we're global and that college students are the ones who created us. And as Becky mentioned, we continued providing services through the pandemic. A couple of our locations, because they are operated by volunteers, at our 58 locations, they had to shut down either at one point or another just because they're older folks. And so they wanted to make sure that they were staying safe, or if there was a concern in their church. And then we're excited about our commitment for the future, because we have, you know, we were here yesterday, we're here today, and we'll be here tomorrow. And so we're excited about where we're going to go and what's going to happen, because we have San Antonio, as we all know, is growing with leaps and bounds. And as Amir mentioned, you know, we have, unfortunately, a great divide in our city. It wasn't exactly how you said it, but, you know, the South and the East, you know, the opportunities for folks there just aren't the same. And I know that I saw a report that's now several years old that the folks in the families in the North Side live, what was it, 10 years longer, 20 years longer than the people on the South. That's heartbreaking. You know, and a lot of it's due to just all the financial stress and the healthcare and work and everything else. So we're excited to be able to have this opportunity to continue serving. That basically is us in a nutshell. I mean, I could go on and on with all kinds of things, but I thought, I go, okay, let's give you at least a brief overview of what we're doing and our amazing 2,000 volunteers that help us pull it all together.